when I dance or when I watch people dance, I see these ribbons and
Mm,
movement. And when I visualize when I am moving for myself, I tend to visualize and move like one of these ribbons.
dude, that makes so much sense.
So everyone's on YouTube, they're in the same moves, learning the same shit, you know, and it was just like, I don't want to be that.
Right.
I've never
Agreed.
wanted to be that. That's like our whole crew's philosophy is never just put yourself in a box.
Let's
Crazy.
jump in. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, forewarning, I feel like I have t too many questions that I don't think I'll get through all of them. So, just be
Okay.
prepared for a part two conversation.
Okay.
All right. So,
Nice.
I'm gonna begin with this, right? Artistically, we go by Tsunami, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm just gonna do, can you do a time? I don't know how to do this. All right. I want to do a timeline almost. Like, what was the first art form that you bumped into?
Oh, jeez.
Okay,
Um,
bumped into and then like owned it. Like, I'm doing this.
so let's see. Well, I guess, I mean, dance was my first and foremost. Like, I guess dance and roller skating really were kind of like synonymous with each other because my mom was competing in skating, roller skating, and also started taking dance classes. So when I was 3, I was doing both. So that kind of kicked off the whole trajectory to where I am today. Um,
That's
and
amazing.
then, yeah, and then, but then she's also very artistic and would draw. My grandmother is like a master oil painter artist. And so, you know, like very young, I like my bucket of crayons went with me everywhere, you know, like, so drawing was always like, you know, a pastime if I wasn't dancing or skating when I was little.
Can we
So,
timeline this? Like, what years are we talking about and where?
oh, Lordy.
You can always
Yeah,
say
this.
pass. Anytime I say a question you don't want to answer, you can always say pass. I'm just
No, it's
curious.
fine. It's
I'm
fine.
curious
It's
on the
fine.
timeline and
So,
where.
I born and raised in San Jose, California.
Okay.
I was born in 75, so you know, by 78, early 80s, I was, you know, dancing, skating, drawing, learning to sew. My mom also just a multi-talented being, and so she was a like costume designer for artistic roller skating, and so she was making costumes. So as she's making costumes for people, I was on the floor picking up the scraps and making costumes for my Barbies. You know, so it was just kind of like just all through the lineage of my mom and her mom.
So this is in
Um,
California.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I
Bay
know
Area.
there's a time frame when you moved to New York or lived in New York.
Yeah, I didn't leave the Bay until 99
Oh,
when I went off to architecture school. Like
okay. That's a huge
I
gap.
had yeah, big gap.
Okay.
Big gap. So basically like kind of timeline wise in high school, early 90s, I graduated in 93. I was a like in all the advanced placement art classes, I was on dance team, I was competing in skating, competing in dance and doing winning like national titles for all these things. But the art side, like I was doing tons of hand like pencil drawings, realism, like also just like abstract stuff. But that was kind of like in school, that was the only thing I was really good at.
Right.
It's like the art side of things, like the math and the languages and all that was not my forte. So, but when I got so then like when I graduated high school, I kind of got messed over by my high school counselor, and there she was like, "Oh, you have all these credits. Like, you don't even need to take a foreign language. Like, you'll be fine." But then when I went to apply to colleges, everyone was like, "You need two years of language minimum, you know, and or foreign language." So I was kind of screwed, and I was like, "How am I going to get into college? You know, like I got to go to school. I got to do something with my life because I was, you know, young
Right.
and hot mess." And so I ended up applying and got accepted to the Fashion Institute or FITM in San Francisco. for visual merchandising and display, like mannequins and like retail display, design. And like so that was like a 2-year program. And so I did that. And while I was doing that, I was realizing that I actually didn't want to dress mannequins for my life as a career,
Okay.
or like, do the decorations within the retail stores. So I had taken drafting classes. And that's when I realized, like, wait a minute, I actually I want to I want to design and create the spaces and the environment as a whole, like the structure of it. I don't want to just do like the interior decorations, like Christmas decorations in Macy's windows. Like,
Right.
cool, I would still love to do that, but like overall, that was kind of when like the architecture bug kind of hit me. And so that's when I left the Bay eventually, or actually another year or two passed, and I ended up moving to San Diego first.
Oh,
And so I went to the new school of architecture in San Diego. And there's actually a really cool story though, like that kind of what caused me to kind of like launch off
oh,
or
do
launch out.
tell. Do tell.
So So while I had graduated at FITM, and I was partying, I was dancing hard, like I wasn't competing anymore. I was just like freestyle, just dancing my ass off. And I had started to kind of dabble, taking some junior college architecture classes, just to kind of see if this was something maybe I might want to get into, because I had already kind of, caught my eye. And my mom pointed something out. She was like, all your photo albums from all your travels from dance competitions, skating competitions. She's like, have you ever noticed that there's no people, like it's not pictures of myself with my friends or family. Like, it's all my photo albums from all the different cities I had traveled to were actually of all like architecture, like buildings and details of buildings. And like, it was just, I'd never like
Hmm.
realized it. And so I was like, oh, so maybe this is something, maybe this is like speaking to me. And so while I had applied to a couple colleges, and initially I had applied to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. I applied to the Savannah College of Art and Design, and then also the New School of Architecture in San Diego. And or actually, even the story before that was my friend's dad. He goes, we were going off to a party one night, and he goes, bring your art portfolio over one night. I want to see your artwork. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I brought it over one night, and he sat me down, I'll never forget, at the kitchen table, going through it, looking at all my drawings, looking at like some of the like, beginner floor plan things that I had done from my, like architecture graphic classes. And he was like, you need to go back to school. Like,
Hmm.
you need to go and get an architecture degree and like do something with this talent. Like, don't fucking waste this. Sorry.
No, you're
I'm an
good.
F bomber.
All right. Well,
Like,
we're true
don't,
workers in this
don't.
house.
I'm potty mouth Pam over here. So, um, but it was a really beautiful moment because like I didn't really have that guidance with my own family.
Right.
And, my mom was supportive in whatever I did, but just never like really, like set me on this path. It was like, you got to do this, you got to go here, and she was just like, wherever the wind takes you, you do something with it,
Right.
and
Right.
so to have someone actually like sit me down and being like, no, you need to do this. And it kind of rattled me. And even my friend, she was like, dude, my dad doesn't even talk to me like that. Like, what the hell? And so I took it and I ran with it. And that's when I started applying to all these colleges. And I was like, I want to go to New York. Like, I want to be in the city where there's this thriving culture of both architecture, music, dance, like all these things that I love so much. But I didn't get accepted. So I was just like, damn. And my portfolio wasn't strong enough. And I ended up getting accepted to both Savannah and San Diego. Savannah actually offered me a scholarship, but it just seemed like as a first time leaving the Bay Area, it seemed like a really big jump. And I
Right,
have family out in Atlanta and Savannah, but still I was just like, man, like if I go to San Diego, I'll at least be able to like drive home, come
right.
visit. It'll be a lot easier, you
I
know?
mean, in the 90s, Georgia was different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yes, very. And my
Being the conversation
family
apart.
was part
Yeah.
of that,
Right,
you
right.
know,
No, I get that.
and that was also a big issue, you know. I was like, I don't know, like my lifestyle and my friends, like my
Right.
family down that side of the family, not okay. You know? So it was a challenge. So yeah, I made the jump to San Diego and I packed my car, drove down, got a job in an architecture firm, like a small firm. And
Yes.
I worked and I went to school full time and I played a shit ton of capoeira at the time because there was no dance scene. There was only a breaking scene.
Right.
And so like I just trained capoeira and then I got down with like Play School Society, which was like a B-boy crew, and that's how I got my name actually. They gave me the
Really?
name. Yeah. Yeah, so if it wasn't for San Diego, there would be no tsunami, you know, like
Wait,
they
conceptually, how does the name like derive? Like, how did they explain it to you at least?
so I was calling myself a horrible name.
Like we all do. In high school, my name was Schoolboy.
Oh Lord. Yeah, I was Shorty Wreck.
Yes, I like that. Hey, yo, Shorty Breck.
Yeah, no. No, it was bad. I was so dumb. And that was the thing. It was actually like most of the crew was all Filipino, and they would always talk in like Taglish and like with that with the Filipino accent. And so they would always call me Ami as
Hmm,
like just as a joke or just with their accent. And so they were like, "Yo, we got to come up with a new name for you," you know. And so they were trying to figure out what worked with Ami, you know.
right.
And they're like, "Origami, right? No." You know? And then like it basically came down to that they were like tsunami because they're like because when you're chilling on the side of the dance cipher and then you go in like no one expects you to like just bust out like you do. You just fucking wipe everybody out, you know.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
so like they were like, "Cause you come in like a storm," and it was just like this whole. It was a joke, you know. We were like laughing about it, and so like it didn't really like stick at that moment, but that was kind of how the name popped up. And then so I was in San Diego for about 2 years, and I really wasn't happy with the architecture program there because I still really wanted to go to New York. I wanted to be in New York. And so in the meantime of dancing with this crew and I flew back out to New York to apply again to Pratt and I got in. Like I was like, I'm flying out there and I'm gonna get into this damn school, you know, and that was like
Right.
my mission. So when I did that and I found out I got accepted when I came back to San Diego and we had like they had like a farewell party for me and they blessed me with my name belt that had tsunami on it. And so that was like, like that it just sealed the deal as far as having the name and
Right.
kind of, like within the time of like Circle of Fire history when this is when like this is like 99 or 2000, like this is when the crew was like doing it up in Japan and like
Oh, so
worldwide,
this is during Circle of Fire era.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like it was, we were kind of off on our own separate journeys at that time.
Get it?
And so getting that name was kind of a major way of me kind of just creating my own person and like in this world of dance, like my own identity basically,
Right. No.
like even more so than I guess I had already established locally or like on the West Coast, because it had already been over 10 years that I had been like in the scene.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so then I went to New York as Tsunami, like
That's cool.
Tsunami was born, and 25 years later, here we are.
I just love the detail that you were named something, and like,
Yeah,
and it fits from how people saw you and experienced you. Like that's
yeah.
not everybody has that story. That's really cool. Uh,
Yeah, it's cool. Like even to this day, like people are like, because that's your name. And I'm like, yeah. And then like I'll dance or they see what I do and they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. It
Makes
makes
sense.
sense, and I'm like, thanks. I'm like, yeah.
Wait, okay, so I have a question. When you went to New York, what was it a cultural shift? Was it a big change or like how was that experience? I mean, we could talk personally and we can also talk artistically.
Yeah. I mean, so the first time I went to New York, I think was actually in like 98.
Mhm.
And I actually had made a friend on AOL in a random ass chat room.
In a chat room, yes, with away messages, with the lyrics of your favorite R&B song.
Actually, it was like actually it was so funny story. I was house sitting my aunt's house and she had internet at her house. And I was like, I'm gonna check out this AOL stuff, And so I got on it. And I figured the safest thing to do would be like go to like a jazz music chat room or something. And so me and this person, we started chatting. We chatted for like 6 hours, and like we ended up becoming homies. Like, and to this day, I'm still friends with this guy. Like we're like it just happened that he happened to be in New York. That was like my one contact that I had on the East Coast
This is when you got there or beforehand?
before, like, yeah, this is even I think before I moved to San Diego.
You had a
I
pen
had
pal.
I had a pen pal or a chat pal. And so my homegirl Annabelle and I we went out to New York for like New Year's for like 98, 99 or something like that. And we met him in Grand Central Station because I didn't know if he was gonna be a creeper or not. And like he's one of the homies. Like he's a good dude, like great friend. And like we just hit it off. But it was like coming to New York, only knowing one person and like but as soon as I got off that plane, I was just like the energy that I felt in New York was like buzzing and I just was like, I'm home. This is it. Like I
Oh,
want to be here. So it was like it was just a matter of like figuring out the logistics of what I was going to do and how I was going to do it, like and get there and then make it work.
okay.
So when I did make that shift, I moved to New York the summer of 2001. So it was literally a couple months before 9/11.
Okay.
And my actually ironically my friend the dad that had told me to get my shit together and go to school his my friend she was actually living in New York by then and
Oh,
so when I moved out there I actually just like crashed at her house for like the first like 2 months literally sharing a bed. She gave me a shelf, put my clothes on. I was living out of a bag, and just trying to like acclimate to the city. And I had actually coordinated with like a temp agency for architecture firms.
okay.
And so literally the night I flew out to New York, I got in, like she was living in Midtown, so I was like right over by Grants on the east side. And like I got in, I made it to her apartment, I got the call and they were like, yeah, can you be at such and such firm at 7:30 a.m. tomorrow morning? And I'm like, yeah, okay. Oh shit. I got a job in New York, and like then I didn't realize I'm like, I don't even really know how to use a train. How do I get there?
Oh,
So
man.
it was that part as far as like culturally, like just waking up and just putting myself into the mix, like there was no like feeling it out, get familiar, like it was go time. So, I took that train, got up in like the studio was in the Village and I was just like lost, people were like this guy like stopped, he's like, so you don't really know where you are, huh? And I was like, no. And this is way before Google Maps, right? Like
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You
so we only had a flip phone, maybe, like that was it. And like it was just it was just really he gave me some tips like always look for the high rises, you'll know your directions and stuff. So I was like, cool, good tip,
I don't think I even
and
knew that tip.
yeah, and I mean, most some areas you can't see any of the tall buildings, but it does help from time to time. But you
Okay,
know,
so career-wise, you went out there for architecture, but
yeah,
then there's a whole bunch of lifestyle stuff going on while you're living in New York. So
Uh,
what was the lifestyle? What was the influences? Dance, skating, art, ready, set, go. Like I'm
yeah.
gonna try to understand. All right, go ahead.
um, so I mean, it's New York City. It's like how central, right? And
All right.
like to I when that very first time that I had gone out to New York, we went to Shelter, we went to like the landmark spots to go dance. And so it was like now getting into town, it was like I want to be able to go and dance at all these clubs. Honestly, I really wasn't like skating much at that time. So I was just like capoeira and dancing or hitting the clubs was really my focus.
Right.
So my AOL friend, his name is Lucas. My AOL friend, like he trained capoeira, so like I would link up. We would go up to Connecticut, we'd go up to Columbia and like train with a couple different groups. And so like I was still kind of like on that like the high point of my training in capoeira. But it was just like hitting those clubs. Like I was going to the club solo because the girl that I was staying with temporarily, like she was a little more on the bougie side, club cheetah, like just the you gotta wear heels. And I told her, I was like, yo, I'm not going to these clubs if I can't wear my sneakers. Like I'm not
Right.
fucking dancing, like it's just not how I do.
Right.
And so I was just finding these clubs, and here I am, dancing alongside Marjorie and Khalif when he was in town, and like all these OGs. And sadly, like it was actually a really challenging time, like in that first maybe 2 years or so that I was out there, because there New York is not the New York that it is now. Like it wasn't as much of a melting pot as far as like the influx of dancers and, from all over. It was more, you know, New York dancers, and they would look right through me because they were just like, who the hell is this Molly Sunshine? Like,
Right. Right. I
and
get that.
so I had no friends, and I ended up joining, the oh gosh, culture shock
Okay.
dance company. It's a youth outreach hip hop program. Oh, here comes drive by cat.
Hey, buddy.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
And it was like I went to that audition, and because I was still breaking a lot and stuff, like I started teaching and doing choreo for that dance company. And it was like I have friends. I was so excited because I was like I can actually make a connection with some people in this company, and we did some cool shows and stuff. Like we had like breaking sessions at Pratt, which was super dope. So I started to get to know the b-boy scene there a little bit as well, and
Mhm.
Step Fiends and all these guys out there. So
Hey.
that was really cool, to try to like make these connections. And yeah, I mean, it was the to go back that very first time that I went to New York, my dance changed. Like
Right.
literally New Year's Day. Like we have video VHS tapes of us in this club on the day party of New Year's Day. Trying to remember what the party was. Body and Soul. It was a Body and Soul
Oh,
party.
wow.
And I I just started dancing completely different. And it wasn't that I was like trying to copy some other dancers. It was just like inherently like the movement, just something shifted.
Hmm.
And it was yeah, it was wild. It was really, really wild. And so like yeah, like the dance was a primary focus during my time in New York. And it was also like because of 9/11 and how freaking scary it was to be there in the city, and standing on at that time I had just moved to Brooklyn, like in the high rise of the dorm building that I was in. Like
Oh,
we
shit.
were on the roof watching these buildings come down, like it was just
Right.
so intense, like the energy of that city and how the city stopped. And
Right.
how do you process that? How do you like function after that? Like so the being able to dance and let that release was a really critical piece of like just getting through it. That was the therapy. That was the work, to do.
You said how
Um,
I'm just curious. You said how your dance changed. In what ways, I guess you would say, like from stylistically, culturally, texture wise, like what would be the difference that you feel like you move differently?
yeah, it was definitely, I think, stylistically, and it's like I look at videos of my dance before that, and it's really like kind of choppy and like very tap based, and something there was it was like the groove settled into me when I was out there.
I like
And
what you.
I don't know how else to like define that, but when I watch that video from New Year's, like I just see myself just sit right in it and just like ride it. And like
This footage online anywhere?
no, I have a really short, a little small clip of it left. Like yeah, I there's not much of it left. Like some of the recording got like re-recorded, sped up, or something happened with the tape. It's really weird. I don't know. I really wish I had like the whole day because it was a really phenomenal night. But yeah,
Oh, wait,
it
low
was
key
interesting.
side note. I like because I know you have a ton of footage from your journey.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you just need to make a documentary about your. I that's one thing that I
I wish
love.
I had more, Don't we
I don't
all though, right?
Oh, okay. I have so many questions. All right. So timeline wise, we're in early 2000s now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Before we go on, how did you balance that? Like, because I always struggle with
Great
that.
question.
I always
Yeah.
struggle with like I love dance, but then but I can't ignore that I also have this skill set towards this other artistic profession that in one sense is making me money. And the other
Right.
sense, I how do you put it? Technically, I'm trained here. Like I don't know
Yeah.
how did you balance that?
So,
How do
I
you
mean, that
still
actually,
balance it?
yeah. So that's actually something that I guess I figured out it was a priority way, way back. So
Hmm.
even when I was like, even before I got into college, when I was like 17 or 18, maybe, like I realized, okay, dance was my shit. That was for the first 17 or 15 years of my life, like dance was my core focus of how I was gonna live my life. And then something hit me, and I'm like, well, when I'm in my 60s or am I in my 70s or even younger and I get injured, what am I going to do? How am I
Right,
going to survive? How am I
right.
going to be an independent person that can take care of herself? And, like, what's plan B? And so the architecture is kind of where that also had kind of stemmed up. It's like, okay, well, I
Hmm.
can sit at a desk and I can design a building when I'm like 80,
Right,
like,
right, right.
so I had created this plan B, which, eventually came plan A dash A, and it was kind of like, I realized that was an important, like having a career, a stable career financially is important. And I knew that dancing as that professional career was going to be a fucking grind, and it was like, how can I find a balance? You know, this live work, live life, live dance, whatever, like this balance. Um, and I just kind of like from the times going through college, working full time, dancing full time, skating full time, art, school full time, all that stuff, like I just kind of realized that I can't ever let one of those like slip away
Oh,
or
you're
you know
in my soul right now. Keep going.
and so like even like in the thick of it, because architecture school, we call it architecture, right? Because like it's intense, it's crazy, like you're up all hours for days on end, like it's insane. But even then, if I didn't at least allow myself a couple of nights to just go out and dance and just either a session or, shelter or whatever it was, like I had to have at least two of those nights because if I didn't, I literally, my brain just, I would just lose my shit, you know, like I just wouldn't function right, or, you know, like my moods would be off. And like, it was the one way to keep myself spiritually and physically in check, you know?
Right.
So through these years, it's that principle has been priority number one. And I tell all the students that I've ever mentored or people that talk about, like, especially with young kids, like, I'm just like, you've got to have this balance. Find something that you can, you know, that will be, you know, useful in the future and when you're older, but make sure you enjoy it. Like, don't just get a job at McDonald's or Starbucks or something and like grind yourself to the ground when, and put all your passions to the side. Like
Right.
they have to be, you have to enjoy doing both things. I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, look, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but the first time I ever came to the Bay and I hung out with you guys, I remember having this shift of consciousness
Mm.
of, especially being around you, there was this because I went to film school. Well, I wouldn't even consider it film school. I went to video school, and and there was always this like you went to school for something, you enjoy doing it, but I don't know how to balance this with this other lifestyle that I've fallen in love with and want to keep
Right,
doing. And when I bumped into like really seeing how you guys live and knowing that you and others in the family have a profession, an artistic profession, a vocation
yeah,
of your own and that you do, simultaneously, your life is still fulfilled with the things that you love, right?
yeah.
And that was a conscious shift for me where
Mm,
I would say I went down this path of I have to figure out how that works for me. And
yeah,
I'm still figuring that out. But
sure, sure.
I do want to say that because of just being able to see your journey from afar and from a distance as well, it's given me a lot of hope for my own life too.
Mm.
So just know whether we talk about it a lot or not, from a distance, I'm always checking in. I mean, what's she
Aw.
and to be honest, I don't fully know a whole lot about that journey of you being in architecture, of
Mm,
from what your portfolio and what you've done and what you're proud of. I don't know of it. And I don't
yeah,
know if it's because it's something that you just keep professional in like your life. I don't know. Can you talk about that balance? Because there's an aspect where in your journey creatively, you love to share, not just you, anyone likes to share about,
yeah,
okay, I'm gonna share a lot about dance, but like my work stuff, I'm not gonna share about it too much.
yeah,
What's that
yeah.
like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I keep it fairly separate. The firm that I work for, I've been there actually in January, I'll be there 15 years.
Yo.
Ew. And it's like over the years, like some of the places that I've worked for do not understand that balance of live work, right?
Mhm.
It's just work.
Right.
Like, and if you go in at 7 a.m. and you leave at 8 p.m., they're still looking at you sideways, like, you're leaving? Where are you going? Like, and I'm not okay with that. And so, I've had a couple of, architects that I've worked for that get it and know and understand these other things that I have in my life, and they've been fully supportive. And obviously, this guy that I work with now, like
Right.
we're a small firm. There's only six of us, and like as long as kind of like the happy wife, happy life kind of
Right, right,
situation.
right,
It's like happy employee, happy,
right,
we work good together. And
right,
so he understands that, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to Holland this weekend. I'll be back on Tuesday, and it's really great. But yeah, I do tend to like, because of the high level of clientele that we have, I just kind of tend to keep that a little more reserved and just privately for the business side of things.
right.
Every now and then I'll post some things like out on construction sites if I see something really cool, and I'll post things. And like, because right, I design and oversee construction for high-end single family homes that
Mhm.
are like 10,000 square feet and up.
Right.
They're big homes, a lot of like tech, tech people, tech money, football players, people here in the Bay that have a lot of money.
Right, right,
and
right.
there's part of me that I'm just like, this is so disgusting. Like these people don't need this much, like their master or primary closet is the size of my freaking entire art studio, and I'm just like, really? Do you really need that? And especially when I was, I've done a lot of work with the nonprofit group all the way live. And, like we were out here in the trenches doing work in, Nepal or Thailand or, all these different countries, El Salvador, and I come home and then I have these clients that are like bitching and moaning about like the most minutia of things, and I'm like, really? Really?
What a
But
contrast. But
it's
I think
such
that's
a
awesome.
contrast. It,
I think it's
it
awesome
hit,
that you can live in this wide spectrum in your. Okay, this is what I love about like artistic lifestyles mixed with professionalism is that you really do live in this crazy blurred line of
yeah,
you're in these rooms of people with lots of money. You're like, I can't believe I'm in these rooms, and the other side of it is like, I was just in a very impoverished area of the world,
yeah,
and now nothing really matters.
yeah, yeah,
You live with that humility, and I think that's so beautiful. Oh my
yeah.
God. Okay. We are I my brain recalibrate. Okay, I wanted to know when did and I don't know if I'm right in even asking it, but when did mural art become a part of your, as a muralist? Like when did that infiltrate into your life and you're like, what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do more of this.
Yeah. Gosh. So actually the first opportunity that I had was actually in New York at one of the piers over on the Hudson River. It
Okay.
was like this giant sports complex. I think it was Pier, I don't even remember the number anymore. But it was a friend of a friend that was in charge of like their baseball program and like their youth program. And he was like, yeah, in this hallway, we want to have like a mural painted. He's like, total artistic license, do whatever you want, this and that. But this is like, it's a baseball center. I'm not really into sports, but he was just like, do whatever you want. And so like I came up with some sketches and he was like, yeah, this is great, this is great. And it was like some like these, I kind of do like these they're like like body figure little characters, but they don't have any faces and they're kind of really abstract, but they were like doing like holding a baseball. They were just kind of like playful and like just gonna have like these ideas. And it was kind of the kickoff to where I draw what I call my ribbons of light. And
Hmm.
so those ribbons that I always draw. So that was kind of like the early days, the phase of that. And I show up, I start painting, I block out the whole wall. I'm working on it. When he comes in, it was like, yeah, so do you think you could just do some like more realistic kind of like pictures of like famous baseball players? And I was just like, bro, like that's really not my bag, and
Oh
like
man.
I thought you approved this design that I had and it was cool. It would have been great, and so it ended up just going really just sideways. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not what I'm gonna do. I'm not here for that. So
Right.
the mural never got finished and that was unfortunate. But then it wasn't until actually the Capoeira School here in the Bay, UCA Hayward or United Capoeira Association, they had gotten a new space in Hayward, downtown Hayward, and it used to be like a ballroom studio, and it was like painted gray, and it was just like dingy. They used to smoke in the bathrooms, and so the whole like there was no ashe to it yet, and like
Okay.
it was just really horrible. So Mr. Hikuta had he came to me and was just like, "Can you please help me? We need to bring some life to this space." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, of course. That's what I'm here for." So I helped, pretty much like just do some of the interior design of the space of like selecting wall colors for all the spaces. And then the main wall as you walk in was this 50-foot by I think 9 or 10 foot tall because the ceilings were kind of low. But it was a 50-foot wall and it was like the perfect backdrop for the space. And he was like, if you want to do a mural, do whatever you want, like this space is at your hands. So I created this visual, these like two ribbons dancing and kind of like intertwining and just traveling across this wall. And to me, it was kind of like the play within capoeira of
Mm,
two people playing and getting kind of caught up and intertwined and then breathing out and like spacing out. And
I love that.
and so it was like my first opportunity to really rock a wall.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm gonna do it 4 days. Having no experience, no real like, especially at that scale, I was just like, no, I got this. I'm gonna go in, I'll rock it out, block it out. Day two, I'm gonna do this. I had it like in my head. I was golden. Like I'm like, I got this. I was gonna wait till like the New Year's holiday weekend and just go in and just crank it out. So by day two, I was so physically like exhausted. Like every muscle in my body and my arms from,
Oh man,
reaching
I
and
bet.
climbing and painting and, I ended up herniating a disc in my neck,
Nah.
which was like a whole thing. But yeah, it was bad. But I ended up having to like pause and wait a week to recover just physically, like because I went so hard.
Oh my gosh.
And then it was like I just had a few more hours to really like touch it up and finish it off. And Kofo and Angelo, they were like, we'll do like a pop-up YouTube video stream where they're gonna mix and they'll just play some music and just kind of help support while I finish the mural.
Right.
And so it was such a dope night. And Jose Latin, he came over and kind of helped to finish some touching up everything. And so that was like the first real big mural that I got into. And it was powerful. Like to be in that room and then like when they had their batizados and like their classes and stuff, and to see like, the movement of the room and of the horas and the circles, with this as their backdrop. It was just like it was really cool. It was probably one of my most proudest pieces that I've ever done. And so I have some really great little pictures of even like the little teeny tiny capoeira kids, they're
Right.
like four doing cartwheels in front of it. It's just really cool.
What a feeling that must be, though. Oh my.
Yeah, yeah.
Where does
Um,
the inspiration of you call it ribbons of light? Is that what you call it?
mhm.
What's the inspiration of that concept?
So let's see. I mean, I started drawing those actually as a part of like art therapy in a way. I was kind of at a really low of my life and was just kind of using my drawings as a way to really like process and just try to figure out where I was, what I was doing, what's the next move. Um, and these ribbons started coming out, but I always had like a big knot in
Hmm.
them. There was always this giant knot, and I didn't even realize it. My mom once again called it out. She's like, there's always a knot. You always have something tangled and like locked, even though this ribbon is like these really fluid things. And I was just like, yeah, I don't know. It's just what's coming out. And after so after New York, I moved to LA and I was living in LA. And this was actually when I was living in LA was when I was rock bottom. So
What was it?
unfortunately,
What was the reason of moving out of New York?
I don't think so. One, it was the winter. I just couldn't do any more winters
Yeah,
because it
get
was
out of here. Too
friggin'
much.
bad. I was just like waiting for the bus and the snow is like hitting you sideways, and you're just like, why am I here? I'm a California girl. The cold just got me. Like it was, yeah, I don't know. It was just, I was at a transitional space. It was like the end of a relationship. I had already graduated college. I was, work was good, dance was good. and I was just kind of looking for something else. I was still kind of in my nomad phase, you know, like I had to move, I had to experience things. I needed to just go, 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 go.
Right.
So I kind of came up with this idea like, well, I'm going to move to LA. Like, I want to experience the nightlife there and the architecture there. And, you know, so I did that and then fell into a horribly toxic relationship,
Hmm.
abusive, all the whole pack. I got the whole package,
Damn.
which broke me down. And you know, I was really sick physically. I was really sick mentally, and I needed to like get help. You know, like I needed some real help. So
What's the timeline of
we
this? Like year wise?
this was 2000 like six. It was still early 2000s. Yeah, that was the rock bottom time. Um, you know, I was dancing a lot, I was skating, I was working for a really great firm like LA Central, where we were designing homes for Beverly Hills, Malibu, Brentwood, like all the big movie star homes and stuff. And that was cool, but that was one of the firms that did not really support like a
Hmm.
lot of creative outlets and other, you know, parts of your life. And then yeah, I was just in this horrible, horrible place with the relationship wise.
Hmm.
So I came clawing out of that, you know, and that's actually 2007, 8 was when I returned back to the Bay Area.
Right.
And that was when I was doing these drawings. And
Hmm.
so I got into, you know, I went to a eating disorder, outpatient program
Wow.
because I was, like I said, really sick and I had lost a lot of weight and I wasn't eating and it was pretty gnarly. And it got to the point where the doctors were like, you can't dance right now at all. Like
Oh,
no
that
dancing.
hurts to hear.
Yeah. You know, so I'm like, here am I trying to survive and was over exercising, over dancing, you know, like just
And career was
powering.
shaky too, right?
Career was shaky. Yeah, you know, it was all the things, you know, like depression, anxieties, you know, anorexia, you know, all these things were all compounded, you know, abuse, like, and I just shut down. So I ended up having to allow myself to be okay to ask for help because
Mm.
it was the first time I was, you know, someone was like, you need help, you know, and I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I can do this. You know, I still have to work. I still have to support myself. I'm still going to do the, you know, dance. And then someone was just like, no, you got to do something else or you're going to die right up, you
Oh
know?
wow.
And so they pulled the dancing from me. And so my art kind of stepped in the foreground for that to cope, you
Right.
know. And luckily I went to a facility that had art therapy
Wow.
as part of their program. And like it couldn't have been a more perfect place for me, right? Like it was actually they did drama therapy and like mask work. I had never heard of this, you know.
Wow.
And so like it was really the one way that I was able to reconnect to myself and work through some of this trauma and like, you know, damage that I've done to myself and you know, use art as that outlet. So like I'd make a mask and like the therapist would put the mask on and I would speak to like these spaces that I had created that were coming from the inside, you know, and it really made a huge impact. And so over time, maybe like 6 months of this program and, you know, getting healthier physically, mentally, my ribbons, my mom, once again, she was like, there's no more knots.
Hmm.
And the ribbons were just drawing just completely free and open, still twisted and stuff, but no knots.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh shit. Like maybe I've unlocked some things and like those knots aren't there inside, that was, these drawings were coming straight from the heart. So these ribbons are truly of light, that have helped pull me out of this darkness that I was in for, a couple years.
Wow.
And so, they every now and then they get a little naughty.
Right, right,
It's
right.
like, but it really depends. And so, these drawings that I do, or these murals, to go back to the murals, like, to see them at this larger scale is it's breathtaking in a way, because I know it's literally like a string from my heart onto that wall.
Right,
And like, just, and to see how other people interact with them, and like the energy that they receive from them,
right.
it's really cool.
I
It's
got a
really,
I
really
got an
cool.
interesting random question because I love how
Yeah.
you explain like that piece of you on a wall and people get to experience that, right? Would you say that that is a close feeling to dance or architecture, or is it just a different piece of you that you get to express and experience versus what you would in dance and in architecture? Like I'm always curious on when people create, is it like a same feeling in various mediums, or is like no, this is this side of Tsunami and this is this side of you know what I mean? Like what's that?
Yeah. No, I think it's all parts of Tsunami. I mean, because as when I dance, or when I watch people dance, I see these ribbons and
Mm,
movement. And when I visualize when I am moving for myself, I tend to visualize and move like one of these ribbons.
dude, that makes so much sense.
So, so it's like, like the mural that I did for the UC, for the Capoeira school, like envisioning these two people or two movements, and there's this ribbon kind of flowing. It is movement as much it is of light, of healing, of energies. Like it does switch to these different meanings behind it.
Right.
But for me, yeah, like, it is my movement. It is a string from my heart. It is like energy or spirit. Like, it's a multifaceted, you know, just piece or element that comes out. So yeah, I don't think that definitely isn't a separate thing. Like me doing a sculpture of like an owl, like that's separate. Like,
Right, right.
like that's a little bit different. But when it comes to this type of artwork, that is all very integrated.
Do you feel like there's a moment where you had, I don't know, I'm always curious. Do you feel like there's a moment where you had a creative Big Bang explosion for yourself? Because I'm always like sit back and I look at you and I'm like, how does she do it all? Or, but you do it in such a way that it's not like bothersome, this is just who you, just, you know what I mean? Like, you're not like, I gotta go make a freaking building today,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just something. There's a big joy of your work that I feel I get to experience, and not that I know every bits and part of it. But was there a big bang where you're like, you know what, this is all me, and I'm gonna live through all of these mediums,
I don't know.
or has that just been a consistent thing for you, where you just like, I
It's
just have to
just
do it all?
I just have, yeah, I have to do all the things, like, I mean, sure, I would love to just like quit my job at architecture and just make costumes all day, or, like, or sculpt, or, sew. And like, there's just so many things. I just love to create stuff. So,
Right, right.
and there's definitely days where in one of those outlets, I'm kind of stuck, or I hit a plateau. And I'm grateful and fortunate that I have these other things that I can shift focus and
Mhm.
let that kind of just marinate in the background for a bit. And then just kind of like hone in on something else, whether it's skating or a costume, or, something else, and then come back and then just be fully recharged and ready to go. And then there's other times where, there's times where I'm just like, oh, I'm not gonna do lip ribbons anymore. Like, I'm gonna try something else. And then like Koflo or my girl Rose or somebody is just like, nah, dude, you gotta keep doing those. Like, that's your shit. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And then I'll get back into one and I'll create something. Just like, I mean, just like this guitar that's in behind. I just did this for Christmas Eve for Kofu for he
Oh,
wanted to
cool.
paint a guitar. And I was just like, yeah, man, I don't know, maybe I'll do a ribbon. And then like once I was in it, I was just like, bam, and like came out better than I had hoped. And I'm just like, all right, cool. Like, so
Like,
I don't know. Just, I
when did
just,
I don't want to say came back, but like what? Because you've been skating a lot. Like
yeah,
what's been
yeah,
the tug in your life that has pulled you so so much more into that life?
yeah. So, I mean, skating has always been there, like even in the earlier mid 2000s or later, even as part of House Dance Festival, I tried to integrate like a skate party just to get people to come and experience skating, and see why I love it so much. Um,
I'm gonna go buy my first skate
it,
this weekend, by the way.
it was,
I'm gonna go buy them this
oh,
weekend.
you are?
My
Oh,
first
let's
skate.
go.
And
Let's go.
you are my inspiration for buying them. I'm like if I'm gonna do anything for like the rest of my life outside of dance, I'm just gonna skate for the rest of my life.
Dude, let's go.
Okay, sorry. Keep going.
Okay. But yeah, and I experienced like a skate party, like a rhythm skate party here in the Bay in like 2016, and it really like that's when I realized like holy shit, there's like this whole subculture still alive and thriving like in the skate world that's just not known to the masses.
Right.
And so like I would go, from time to time. I wasn't skating like hardcore at all. And then in 2018, I went to Detroit and Garrick Poseidon took us to Soul Skate, which is like a huge 3 day skate festival put on by Moody Man. And like it's like a national party. So people from everywhere come out for this party. And we went to one of the nights and I was just blown away. Like, I was like, oh, I could skate fast. And I'm on the outside, jamming. And I would just feel hands like come up and like nudge my hip. And I just move over and people just flying past me. And I'm like, holy shit, this is real. Like, this is so amazing. And seeing like this, like, microcosms, cat's hairball. um, my just experiencing like the literally like watching the rank and seeing the micro like sub like ecosystems almost like it was like the ocean where
Hmm.
you have like three different circles in the middle. One's like partner skating or ballroom. Another one was like cats doing like crazy spins and like footwork. And another one was like, just these different types of styles because it's again a national party. So like all these different regions have different styles and it's so dope. And then, there's like a middle ring where people are kind of just skating somewhat slow. And then on the outside, people are flying, and it was a huge learning curve as far as like what was going on in that culture, but I connected because of the circles in the middle and the ciphers were very, it was home base to me based with what
Right.
I know from my dance world. And so pandemic comes along, 2020, and I'm already always skating in the garage and doing whatever. And people are just hitting me up left and right, like, yo, what kind of skate should I get? What kind of wheels? This and that. And I'm just like, like, you want to skate? Let's fucking go, And it
Right.
was just like, it was beautiful to see the interest like spike like it did
Right.
for like people I've been wanting and hoping to try skating for years.
Right.
It was also, in the dance scene around that time, like 2019, 2020. It was kind of ugly here.
Hmm.
There was a lot of like social and, Me Too's and all this stuff going on in the scene. And so it got really kind of ugly and really hard to like just process and deal with, seeing like this community that has like historically been so open and loving and supportive get really just like kind of foul. And so I had literally had to kind of pull myself back and away from the scene for a while.
Word, I feel.
And and like I didn't really want to dance. I didn't really want to be around these people anymore. But then we became completely isolated, because of the pandemic. And so skating kind of became that outlet, as well as, I mean, that's when we started Simmer Room. We were still trying to connect via Zoom with people, but as far as like for myself, like the skating was like what kind of sparked that passion for my movement again.
Right.
And but it also, because of this like whole other world that I really didn't know a whole lot about, or know very many people in it, of this like this the rhythm skate, the black skate community.
Right.
Like I was like, oh my gosh, like I have so much work to do now. Like I need to learn, I need to do my due diligence to like understand the culture and the history of it, and how, it gave me a whole new set of challenges to
Right.
learn, like physically, like in my own skates, as well as just like history and context. And so I was like, I just became immediately obsessed again, and because growing up, my whole life of skating was this artistic world, which was basically like ice skating, that you see in the Olympics, but on quads. And it was just like such a separate world than this rhythm skating community. And so like we growing up, yeah, we go to public sessions, and like I always say, like the public session, the Friday night skate session at the rink was literally like my introduction to club culture. Like it had the DJ, it had the lights, it had the boys, it had the b-boys in the corner dancing, like all these elements compounded, and was just like, oh yeah, like this was my first club, was when I was 14 at the skating rink, and
That's so crazy.
so
It's so
bringing that
crazy how
all,
those cultures they blur and they clash, and
it
yet they're also
totally,
very separate at the same time.
totally, totally. And that was the thing. It was like coming from that strict, like artistic world, and then seeing like this free like style of skating or and music. It was exactly the same thing that I had dealt with in my dance career as well, because I came from this restrictive, formal ballet, like
Hmm.
controlled, choreographed, programmed world. And when I dove into the freestyle world, the house scene, like it was just so liberating and so free to just be able to still take all the technique and formalities of what I have, but learn to fuse it into just original organic movement,
Right,
and not
right,
being told what to do.
right.
And so like in both worlds, skate and dance, they like literally it was, 2020 where those two worlds for me really collided, and it was like, oh shit, this is it. Like I am in heaven. I can die right now and be okay. Like
Wait, I have a personal question, but I just gotta let my dog out real quick because
okay.
this now my brain's fired up. Okay, so it's more of okay, so like you got your name Tsunami in Long Island, I got my name Shade from Ivan actually,
Yeah.
and it was this naming of various personalities in one person, and it stuck, and that's when I had the name, and then I moved to Florida, and that's kind of where like the journey of Shade.
Yeah.
But the concept of the character has stayed with me in everything that I've done. And for me, it's just like wearing various hats, no matter what medium that I'm in. But
Right.
I've always struggled, and still to this day, I'm always like, I don't know what hat I'm wearing, and it's a very weird, blurred thing. Do you
Just
struggle
wear
with,
all the hats.
yeah, like at this stage, because you have much more experience on this journey than I do. Do you find yourself where you are constantly putting on different hats, or now it's more of like, no, I'm just me in the different places, the different,
Yeah.
I guess, communities, right? Because again,
Yeah.
it's like worlds that collide and worlds that are so separate, but you also, I find like there are different languages, and you find that you are a different person in every community.
Mm.
Like, what's that like for you?
Yeah, I don't, I mean, it's like sometimes I guess I struggle with that or question that because it was like, yeah, and I mean I don't call myself an OG at all. Like I've just been around for a long time.
You my G though.
It,
Oh,
in
you my
the
G.
I'm a little lowercase g. But like within the dance world, it's like, yeah, I've been around, I've done a lot. And in the skate world, it's like I've been around, I've done a lot. Like, my girl Lita always says she's not new to this, she's true to this, and so yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of like I my goal, I think initially, once I was diving back into the skating scene or into the skate world, was I wanted to be my authentic true self,
Right.
and which, in movement is through my dance. So I was like, how can I fuse myself into the skating thing and not because that was the thing. Just like in the dance world, pandemic, everyone's on YouTube learning the same moves, learning the same shit, and it was just like, I don't want to be that.
Right.
I've never
Agreed.
wanted to be that. That's like our whole crew's philosophy is never just put yourself in a box and be like, I'm a roller skater, I'm a voguer, I'm a house, like I'm this. Like, no, I just want to be Tsunami, and these are the things that I can do, And so I don't want to be the little Molly Sunshine in her booty shorts running around the skating rink,
Right, 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 right,
like
right.
not my vibe, some it may be, but that's not my vibe. And so it's just a matter of, I feel like now I've really kind of settled back into just my own persona as a whole.
Right.
And whether I'm doing art, I'm doing dance, I'm doing skating, I'm at work, like maybe at work I have to tighten it up a little bit,
Right,
like,
right, right.
but
Well, each art form demands a different part of you too
yeah,
that you have
yeah,
to bring out. I totally get that. Like as
yeah,
on set for me, I do have to transform into a different personality for
right,
and I would assume the same for you with with being a leader in your own community when there's a part where you're in the circle, but when there's a part where you're cultivating and creating the circle, you have to have a different mind, different hat. That's
right,
all. Yeah.
right, yeah, yeah,
How's that been
yes,
in the last couple of years? I want to say because I came out the first time was 2009. I think it was the
dude, it's
first time. That was
been that long.
yeah, and then after that, I think it was like 2015, 16, something like that. So like from that stage
Yeah,
till now, uh I don't know if I've ever told you this, you guys, but everything that I've ever experienced in the Bay Area on the couple times I've been out there is how I modeled my perspectives of building the Florida community.
wow,
So much of what you'll see that comes out of Florida, and I'm not taking credit for anyone's talent, just more of the rooms that we were able to create for these people to walk through. So much I think of what has come out is very directly influenced from what you guys have built out
wow,
in your area. So you'll get a lot of dancers that are blurred line dancers. You're like, what is that? I don't know what
yeah.
it is. I think it's popping, but it's not, or we kind of houses and that's due to this feeling that I had when I came out to you guys was it felt like my own blurred line was accepted somewhere in this world.
Hmm.
Because in New York it's a very like this is breaking, this is funk style, this is this. Coming to Florida, they're like we don't do that stuff. It's and they were trying to
Yeah,
be so much of the time that I was out there not just in dance, but trying to be another New York. And that was always a tough, like, but you're not, right? So
right,
this
right.
weird blurred line that I've always lived in, when I came out to the Bay Area, it felt like you guys embraced, I don't even know what to call it because I don't have a definition of it, which is there's just some creative energy happening that it's like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
don't know. Like, what can you before I go on, can you explain what is that feeling that you guys cultivate in the Bay Area? What is it?
I know. I know.
Because some of the most, I think, creative, I'll take from the movement perspective, movement artists, I think, have come out of your area.
Yeah,
And, from eclectic and challenging the art form to, it is and it isn't. I don't know. It's such a cool, vibrant place to be a part of. I think everyone should
Yeah.
experience at some point. And I totally lost track of thought and what I was.
Well, I mean, I would say now, like right now, it's actually a really interesting time here because there's been a huge influx. Hi, Chiefy. Um, there's been like, this big, massive influx of like ton of new dancers.
Mm,
And it's really cool because it was like right before the pandemic, the scene kind of broke apart and there was some noisemakers and then they went away and then everyone isolated and then once everything opened back up, it's like all of a sudden this like influx of newer, younger cats are like coming through and it's really dope because it's just interesting to see them all kind of formed as like one big family
mm,
versus just like smaller little cliques and things, and so it's like everyone is like exponentially growing together regardless the style, that's there's definitely more of this freestyle aspect that's coming out. Like there's cats out here trying implementing like Shaolin movements and like, just from their own families, like
mm,
cultures and different things. And, it's just like, yeah, I don't know. The Bay has just always been so more open. And maybe because we never really had a specific style to be like recognized by, maybe,
hmm
like even in the 90s, like even back when it was like freestyle hip hop and New Jack or, like all these different styles, it was never we just do breaking or we just do whacking or whatever it is. Like it's even from like the earlier days, it's always been just like more acceptable to be who you are.
Right.
And so like that's just been nurtured here forever.
I
And
love that. And you guys have
yeah,
been, again, like, okay, now I remember the thought. Uh, from what I feel like I've been able to contribute to when I lived in Florida, it's highly influenced from my experiences around you guys. And I guess my question would be not so much of the balance, but why it feels like your work communally is central to who you guys are too. Like you guys are artists in your own right individually, but then there's also
yeah.
like camaraderie of like this is a each one of us has to be a part of not just the next generation, but like what's happening now. Like can you
Mhm.
touch on a little bit about that? Because I feel that uh there's a lot of work that you guys have done, probably specifically you in itself, just of caring about the people in your community artistically, but also personally.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I fucking love this shit. It's
That's the greatest answer. That is the greatest answer.
as eloquent as it can get, right?
Um, and not a simple answer, but it's a right and true answer. And I think that a lot of people miss that mark. It's just because you love it and it means something to you, and you have to keep it going, right?
You have to keep it going. Yeah. And like, if I was to covet it and, be one of them grumpy OGs being like, oh, my day we did this and you can't do that. It's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like if I see people that are eager to learn and want to be a part of it, then hell yeah, like come on in, like let's work, let's do the work, let's dance, I'm happy to share stories. I'm happy to, give recommendations on, just history, context, videos, movies, books, whatever, like to help continue this thing that, I've been in 30 plus years now, like it's just, yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't
No,
know.
I don't know. I'm in awe hearing about it because it's something near and dear to my heart too. Like I always have this interesting balance of, going on your journey professionally, personally, but then there's like this whole community of people that you also realize in your area. And that's I don't want to say need you, but they need something. And you look
Mhm.
around, you're like, I guess I guess that's
We're
us.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, for a while, that it definitely that was. that's been the case for sure. We're just like, how can we provide and help nurture or, push this next generation to do it. And it's exciting though now, like to see some of this next generation actually trying to figure out how to do these things for themselves as well. So we're seeing people putting on their own events now, and we're more a little more in the background for it to just support, and where I am at least, and like it's like that's good because I want these cats to learn and understand what it takes to put on these events or these classes or let them figure out some of that too. I think is really important because then that will also carry on to the next generation. Like if I just keep doing everything for everybody, then no one's learning anything.
No, of course. I
But
was in a panel discussion a couple years ago, and they asked, "What's the best thing for OGs to do?" And I just said, "Get out the way, man. Just let the kids do their thing. Doesn't mean like don't support, like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but also let them figure it out
Let
because
them figure it
they
out.
figure it out too.
Yeah.
And every generation has its own things that they have to hurdle over and get past and work through. Um, and I think it's so important to have creative people like yourself, not just still around, but your story that's there. Because
Mhm.
I don't know, when I look at what you do, and there's so much like I just wrote a whole timeline of it.
You want to see my resume? No,
I
I'm just
definitely do.
kidding.
When I look at it, it's this. It's okay. I'll talk from the dance perspective, which is when I watch you dance, it feels like I'm watching your life versus something that you've like sat there to create.
Mm,
Some people are like, and I'm pretty sure in your process, there's moments where you have to sit down and you have to like conceptualize and theoretically approach things. But I feel like when you're moving, when you're dancing, I get to see your art and I get to see your mural and I get to see your
mhm,
architecture and your ribbons and your capoeira. I get to see all of that within your movement. And I assume that other people would say the same thing in other mediums as well. But
mhm.
I don't come across a lot of people where I get to see their creativity and I'm like, oh no, that's just them. That's just their life pouring through their work. And that
Yeah.
I think it's so important for people to experience it because in I'm involved in film culture, so there's a lot of integration of pop culture within there, and you get a lot of people that are, trying to figure out algorithms, they're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work, but you don't always get the people that are like, this is just what I create because this is who I am, and
Yeah.
that I love to be able to witness that and see that through your work, and I hope
Mhm.
more people get to uh, take witness to, especially after this conversation, because that's my hope is for people just to see some of like the coolest fucking people in my life and just to see what, right? Um,
Yeah.
okay, just kind of as we kind of land the plane,
Sure.
what's the hopes for your own creative self in the next couple of years until the day it comes? What's the hopes for you
Mm.
or things that you want to try to do and accomplish or things if you've always been thinking about. What's like is there another artistic medium? Is there something that you want to build and create? What's that like look like?
Oh man, there's always something, but I mean, it's kind of like art wise, I guess. It's like, Halloween is my big time of the year that I'd love to literally spend 3 months on for Halloween.
Scorpio season.
Yeah. And I, it's like every year in the last, gosh, I think 10 years or so, it's like progressively gotten deeper and deeper and further into the process. And for, like all the things that I love to make, it's 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 not the final product
Mm.
that I'm like, you know, I mean, I'm happy to have the final product, but it's literally that those learning curves and the challenges and the problem solving that I really really thrive off of. And so like, every year for Halloween, I come up with a concept, come up with sketch out a costume, And then, I'm like, okay, what material or what can I want to try I have to try something new every year, and like whether it's plaster molds, silicone molds, like working with different fabrics or, just some sort of like creative or art like method and process. So like, the last couple of years I've learned to like I made my Ninja Turtle costume last year for learned how to use latex and or pour molds and make latex masks and so like for me it's kind of like I would love to find more time to maybe do more than just one big bang for the year, like and try to push to maybe do a few more or and continue that challenge for myself of learning these new methods and get better at the ones that I've already challenged myself with. Like, um, yeah, I love being in the studio and being covered in plaster or clay or paint or I'm a messy artist.
Right, right, right.
um, so that's definitely been a goal. I'm like, okay, well maybe this year I'll try to do a couple more like super involved projects versus like the one big one that I do, for the year. Um, Skating wise and dance wise, I want to continue to travel and share. Um, Competition's never really been my thing. We went to IBE this year and I battled with Vicky or Lavix and for the break down the house and I had so much fun. Like we had so much crew there and it was dope. Everybody was doing the 2-on-2 together and but I just literally like in the middle of my round was just like, I'm really not into competition. Like, what am I doing? Like, so I just realized that, being able to continue to travel and move while I can, while my body allows me to, is a big goal. Just to help and stay inspired, be inspired, and inspire is a big thing.
That's beautiful.
So
I
yeah,
I'm very how do I put it? I feel like my career choice has put me in this path of a constant struggling between the craft and then but my life, and
yeah,
starting to come to this kind of integration. So when I get to kind of bump into and have conversations with people like you, there's this like, see, it does make sense.
yeah. I mean,
And
it doesn't happen right away, right? Like it takes time and finesse, and you learn to make it work and come together. And
right,
some things will fall right into place for sure, and other times you're just like, how can I make this work? How am I gonna get this element of my life as balanced or whatever it is? But like, how do you get it integrated so that
right,
literally all these things become hardwired and it's not a struggle or a hassle to like keep it in your life or keep it on the schedule,
right,
that's
right.
a big part.
Yeah, I mean, I love how when you talk about like with your ribbons of light, how it came out of a dark time in your life, and it's also a piece of work that you're proud of that you continue to celebrate,
Yeah,
and I can completely resonate with that verbiage, and I think it's important for people to embrace those times and also live in and through those times because what comes out of it, of course, nobody likes to go through it,
yeah,
process through it, but simultaneously, it's the very fabric that makes you, you know,
yeah,
and and
yeah,
designs the next stage, Um,
yeah,
as we land the plane, what would be, I guess, for an audience purposes, encouraging words for people that are just on the journey and they're kind of going through the same ride, which is like I do this and I do that and I don't know. And maybe they don't want to choose but they definitely have a lot at their fingertips. What would be your
yeah.
words?
um I just saw, I forget who said it, but the saying is don't try, just do.
Hmm.
Like just do it.
Right,
You, if it means that much to you, you make it work,
right,
and that's just something that the more excuses, oh, I want to do this, but I have to do this, and this. Like, nah, make it work. If it means that much to you, you make it work.
Uh,
And so that's more of the tough love Nami.
is that Bay Area or is that New York Nami talking? Which one? Which
That's
uh,
all the Nami.
oh man, you are the best. I really appreciate you making time
Oh,
to chat. I'm
I
glad that we were able to
appreciate
make it
you.
work. I even forget like there's a time difference. I'm such like I live in my own world. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. We are in a different time zone, you know?
I
So
know it's so crazy.
I appreciate you making the time and trust me, after I go over this, I'm gonna be like, this is definitely gonna be a part two because I there's just more to talk
There's a
about.
lot.
So
There's a
much.
lot. Yeah.
Oh man. All right, I'm gonna stop record here because you're awesome.